Yeah. The judicial branch, yes. During good behavior, and shall at stated times receive for their services a compensation. Now, I know that every Supreme Court Justice of the United States, since they ratified the Constitution, they ask themselves, what is good behavior? Yes. Is that moral behavior or immoral behavior? See, there's this problem with what is known as the moral and the immoral. Now, I would say that the Supreme Court Justices of the United States are getting sued, yes. And having any knowledge of the immoral behavior, yes, otherwise known as bad behavior, would make them complicit in treason. Mm-mm. See, good behavior, bad behavior, moral and immoral, they're very similar because your morality decides your behavior. Yeah. And if you don't have any morals, yes, you can't have any good behavior. Now, I'm sure that they want to hear the case about the terminating of parenting rights. Yes. Using protection orders and dissolutions of marriage. Yes. Instead of the obligation to have to serve the respondent before terminating parenting rights. See, it looks to me that there are different conditions of due process for what is known as the terminating of parenting rights hearing. Yeah. You actually have to prove the individual was giving notice and opportunity to be heard. Now, these protection orders, yes, they seem to be optional. Pooch! It's kind of like, well, we can say that we served the individual, yes. And as Auburn versus Salas would say, as long as I had knowledge of the protection order, that's all that you had to do. Yes. But when you issue it for 10 years, um, it actually is being used to terminate parenting rights. Now, a little different condition for these court hearings, RCWs of the state of Washington. It's kind of like you can say, well, we attempted service for the respondent when issuing a dissolution of marriage. Right. And it's up to the respondent if they want to appear in court or they don't. Yes. We attempted service on the respondent for a protection order. Yeah. And it's up to the respondent if they want to appear or not. Yes. But when it involves the due process obligations of a terminating of parenting rights hearing, yeah, it looks to me like you do have to make sure that the individual did receive notice and opportunity to be heard. Because if there is the availability of the respondent appearing in court, yes, they could be in contempt of court for refusing to appear. Oh, oh. Now, when we evaluate, yes, what is known as due process, hmm you issued a dissolution of marriage where the petitioner said, well, I sent it to him and he didn't get it. Yeah. But there was no proof of service. No. And there was no proof of service that I received the dissolution of marriage after you issued it. No. In fact, I've never gotten a dissolution of marriage. Now, you would have thought that before you could issue a dissolution of marriage, you would have to have proof of service. Yes. And then it was up to the respondent to decide whether or not they wanted to appear in court. Now, for each of the protection orders that you issued, yes, you said as long as right now. Now, let's look at the due process requirements of each of the three court orders. One's a dissolution of marriage, yes. The other's a protection order, yes. And the other's the terminating of parenting. Well, it looks like it's kind of like criminal. Let's say I failed to appear to a court hearing where I didn't, because you refused to admit the evidence that I wasn't in SQUIM. Yes, but I communicated with law enforcement. I'm homeless. Yeah. And I said, well, give me notice from the public defender's office of the requirement to appear in court as the state of jurisdiction. Yes. But they didn't scan it in and email it to me. No. They didn't say, well, walk over to the public defender's office and I will give you the notice requiring you to have to appear in court. What they did was they said, well, the judge requests your presence in court. Now, if they had said that they had notice requiring me to appear in court, you would have thought that they would have communicated in the email, yes, that we have a copy in the public defender's office, and if you want a copy, you can walk over here and get a copy. But they didn't communicate that. No, no, they didn't. Now, anytime it says as a personal recognizance, yes, that I'm required to appear in court, that should be the requirement of issuing court notice. Right, right. See, it's kind of like judge right now. That you requesting my presence would require you to issue notice requiring my presence, and I would have a right to have a copy of that notice. And since I didn't have a mailing address and you were sending everything to 1023 Kitchen Dick Road, are you sure that Mike hasn't committed the crime of treason? Now, you would say, can only an oath of office be tried for treason, or is it making war against the United States? Oh. Now, let's say I was able to talk to Maryland today, two American citizens. Do you have knowledge that Mike said this is the way that we're going to do things? Mike is now guilty of treason. Now, I just need two witnesses. Well, I'm wanting Mike to be tried for treason against the United States because of making war against the United States. It seemed that some pastors had got involved in some special security clearances. Yes, that Mike Van Proyn was going to be the general of the United States, and Mike Van Proyn was going to decide what the nation does. Now, let's say I found out that Brent, yes, in his immoral behavior, yes, is guilty of terminating parenting rights without having a court hearing. Yes. See, I could be held contempt of court for refusing to appear. Oh, now I'm in jail. See, you don't go to jail for missing a dissolution of marriage hearing. No. And you don't go to jail for missing a protection order hearing. But the way I was looking at the law, and I could be wrong on this, yes, you can be held contempt of court and go to jail for missing a termination of parenting rights hearing. Now all of a sudden, I'm suing the fuck